All right, welcome everybody. We've got one of our final episodes of the season of Peach Pit. We get to do some DCMP review, some championship preview of now that divisions are out. We get to talk about some of the action to expect from our PCH and South Carolina teams at World Championships. But before we get started, we'll make the usual disclaimer that any views or opinions shared on the show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of Peach Pit, any FRC team, Georgia First, First South Carolina, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. So the idea behind the show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District and First South Carolina. We're going to talk about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you see us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. We'll start off with some introductions. My name's Kellen. I'm a 1833 mentor and 1042 mentor, and also a Georgia First volunteer.
Hey, I'm Anupam goalie. I am the head coach for Team 9477 Lambda, and for championships, I will be helping 1833 and 6919, and any Georgia team who wants to come and hang out. South Carolina teams too.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm David Allred, a drive coach and CAD mentor from 4451 Robots Garage out of Lawrence and Fountain Inn High Schools, and our B team 84864 Innovation Station.
I'm Brian Carlson with Ignite Robotics 6829. I am actually currently right now camping at Worlds, so I will be visiting all the teams from Georgia and South Carolina, so I'll be looking forward to meeting up with everyone.
I'm Thomas, last name redacted, and I just set the single game goal scoring record for my Sunday League soccer team with 1 goal. We're not that good.
Fair.
All right, and then behind the scenes we have Ian, our producer. I don't think we have any active accusations out against him, so we'll give him some credit for just being human this week.
He beat the ghost allegations?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, they haven't come up in a while, so.
Okay.
He's not a witch, he's not a ghost, he's not a banshee.
I still think he's a witch.
Okay.
You'll have to wait and find out next time. We'll see if we have any technical issues this episode. If so, we'll come back to you with some accusations later in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get started, I do want to say, last episode I made a joke that Howard from Team 1683 had bribed me to edit my list. I would like to say that Howard has never in history ever offered or even said anything close to providing me with a bribe or even a gift of any sorts. That was 100% of a joke. I apologize to Howard, and to those of you who took me seriously, why?
We appreciate that you put so much weight in a top 5 list provided by Thomas, last name redacted, on this fine YouTube podcast we have running here.
He's in the witness production program now.
I did bribe Thomas with some donuts to not mention.
No one has bribed me ever in the history of this podcast. That's why they call me Thomas. Thomas Integrity, last name redacted.
Thomas Gracious, last name redacted.
No, not gracious. I don't like that word.
Yeah.
Gracious accept.
No, especially in that. Well, no, graciously declined. It's kind of badass, but everything else.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
All right, now that we have that out of the way, just for anybody's general knowledge, we do accept donuts as bribes, but it may or may not get the expected result. So,
Yeah.
All right. With that said, we'll move on to some of the awesome action we had going in Georgia and South Carolina this past weekend, or last weekend, for our district championship events. For the Peachtree District Championship event, we had at Mercer. We had an exciting showdown. We had a real ranking battle up at the top. We had some very well-constructed alliances, some interesting strategies pulled out. But our winners wound up being the number 1 seed Alliance, with number 1 seed Bean, 1833, picking 1771 as the first overall pick. With a third robot of 3318. I was excited about this alliance getting back together after the Gwinnett event, because it is incredibly close to being a palindrome outside of the numbers 1 and 8 being flipped around. But it was a pretty sweet alliance to have a robot of 3318's caliber filling up L1s. And I think they got their climb off 1 or 2 times before playing some more defense. But congratulations to that winning alliance. We also had our finalist alliance of 1261 Robo Lions. Team 2974 was their first pick of their alliance. This is the number 2 seed, and then they rounded out their alliance with a defense selection of 7538, who really put the clamps on opposing alliances, cleaning up with then a deep climb at the end of the match. So a two offense, 1 defense strategy selected by the 2nd seed that got them all the way to finals, with a couple of close matches along the way. We had an Impact Award winner of 2974. Broke an interesting streak we had going, I think, of no overlap between Cultural Award winners and some of our top performers for district points in the state. So 2974, outside of breaking that streak, congratulations on an awesome effort for your outreach programs. This is a team that's been in that outreach game, doing some awesome things for years and years and years. We had some fun selections then for our Engineering Inspiration Awards, of which there were 2. We had teams 1002, Circuit Runners. They're a team on the up and up, both outreach-wise and robot-wise. They wound up having a great performance, putting up a good deal of coral, as they're one of those robots that I think you'd consider to be one of the first ones out, or just barely not selected based on the caliber of their offensive output. And Team 7538 was our other EI winner, who was obviously in those finals, playing defense, but again, an awesome program in a number of ways for both robot performance and their outreach program.
And also, while we're talking about awards, huge shout out to one of our co-hosts, Anupam Goli, for winning the Woody Flowers Finalist Award at District Champs.
Hey, don't forget, David Allred over here is also a Woody Flowers Finalist Award winner.
Yeah, 3 of the 5 of us now.
I was about to say, Thomas, we're slackers now. We have
I don't think
they're respectable. We're not.
We have there's what's our blue banner quotient here? Our BBQ.
But I don't know. Like the rest of you, there's a photo of me floating around there with an Einstein banner. So I think me, Kellen, and Anupam have David and Brian beat in that regard.
I also don't think Thomas can be submitted for a Woody Flowers award, because he won't give his last name, and I think that ends up being a required piece of information. So you choose your bets.
And Ian will never get one because he's a witch,
or a ghost,
or a banshee.
Really don't know.
Well, congrats, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also like to give any shout out to. We haven't really called them out too often this season, or if these are just last week notes and we didn't have a rookie all-star to call out, but our buzz bots, the 10482 Kit bot with their deep climb, wound up for the 3rd time this season being an alliance captain in the PCH district. So awesome start to that program. They're looking forward to going to Worlds. And I'm sure they'll thrill some alliances in quals with having their filling up L1 and taking care of that deep climb, for being a good alliance partner, contributing on that front as a rookie. All right, what do y'all think of the general outcome, rankings, qualifications? Any qualification matches catch your eye? What do you think of the PCH District Championship?
My first thought about quals was it was a little bit surprising that 1771 didn't rank first, but it wasn't surprising that 1833 ranked first, if that makes sense. Both have the robot to rank first, but you kind of expect 1771 to rank 1 at these events.
So they were those two teams were neck and neck at Gwinnett. I think technically they could have tied, but yeah, 1771 just barely edged out with the one RP. But the ranking point battle at this event was just nuts. First, 1833 only missed 3 bonus RP, went undefeated, and got 69 out of possible 72 RP, which is just nuts.
Yes. I
God.
remember we were talking about this beforehand. I'm like, hey, I think they're getting 65. And it turns out 1771 went over 65 and then Bean even topped that.
Yeah, so it was hilarious having the Bean crew. I was out at the practice field the entire event, kind of trying to catch as many matches as I could on the TV we had done there. But the reactions on the Bean mentors and team members' face, match after match, things just kept working. But just like, we're not used to this.
We're used to the quals are for trolling, elims are for when locking in.
Yeah, so it was just a remarkably impressive run they had going. Just for, again, stringing together all those wins, so many of them being 6 RP matches, says a lot to the consistency of the effort put in on a match-to-match basis to make sure all the planning was in place. I think we had an awesome match to be able to watch from the practice field that we had like 20 or 30 people gathered around the TV down there when it was generally only 2 or 3 people. But it was match 72 wound up being just the absolute hoot of a match, which wound up being, and this was an early one flagged as soon as quals came out, of like, okay, for 1833, this is the match we're losing, and we'll win the rest of them and get some RP. But this match we're kind of flagging as a loss, given that they're playing against 2974, 1683, and 1648. Like, to have those robots on the other side of the field, to give some credit, then 1833's alliance partners were 7451 and 3635. These aren't what at the time were any of the top bots in the district. They're certainly solid contributors, but if you look at that match here, I think the knee-jerk outcome is like, okay, Red's going to take that match, just for the strength of the 3 robots they have. But apparently at some point throughout the day, 1833 decided this, okay, if we do this just right, I think there's a way we can win this match. But it was just really cool as the match went on to see that the Bean Alliance kind of get some head and shoulders above the other alliance and maintain it. I think they also had, I'm trying to remember if they wound up with, I think it was 1 climb to 1 climb by the end of it. But wound up being, I think, the only unicorn match at PCH DCMP for all 9 RP being had, which is again, super cool match. But the final score being 208 to 170 was, again, one of the more exciting matches at the event. I know this is where I think I got a complaint from 2974 after this and a couple of their other matches, because I think in a string of matches they wound up putting up, let's see, where's our numbers here?
On that note, right, I think there were 2 qualification matches which kind of tell the story of this event. Qual 72 was one, with Bean pulling out the upset. And then Qual 79 is what you're referring to, Kellen, right? Where it was Mechanisms, Walton, and Lambda versus 1771, 6340, and 9480, where we put up 191 points, but we still lost to 221 points. And I think that kind of explains the event for Walton and for the rest of us, honestly. Is like, we're putting these numbers up, but you just can't compete with some of these things.
Yeah, so I think Walton was any bit frustrated because they had it on a few occasions. They had a 191, a 170. I think they had a 150 early on. But just to be putting up that high a score and walking away as the loser of the match, it's like, how? I don't know what more we can do. Obviously, they were very well recognized for their total output rather than just looking at their record, because what their record wound up being 7-5,
10-8.
but they wound up being the second overall pick in the draft by 1261.
And they were still ranked. No, never mind. They were ranked low.
Yeah, they were ranked 10, so they definitely would have bumped up. But obviously having the offensive firepower they had wound up getting pulled up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like,
think
there are just a bunch of really good bots. I think DCMP sort of became what we thought it would be, which should be just a blast to watch because everybody, even the mid tier, was still, really well and able to contribute. And so it was very exciting matches.
yeah, and
think-
it was definitely something really really fun to watch. And being in England, it was nice because the elims and into the day rounds were right around when I was going to bed, so it made things a lot easier to watch. So I was able to keep track. I do apologize to the people who were in the hotel room beside me who probably had no idea why I was saying like screaming coral and algae at 10 p.m. at night. But yeah, this I think this was one of the first DCMPs that I've seen come out of a Peachtree district that I've looked at and compared it to others and go, oh, this was a world class DCMP. I still think there's some steps to take, but I think the good news is as the district is progressing, we are slowly but surely, and I definitely had this concern with South Carolina leaving, but we are getting to the point where we should be able to hold like a Petrie District champion is just as good or just as valid on the world stage as any other.
So, like, I did want to express my little bit of disappointment, though, in that I really think we could have unlocked an even higher strategic level of this game had we had some more algae bots. Maybe I say that as an algae bot, but if you look at the way that our alliance played the game, right, we approached it completely differently. I mean, as a team in general, we did, but I think you would have unlocked a lot more strategic depth and variability in strategy had there been more than a couple of algae robots in the field that could get algae off and then score it. That was really what was missing for me for the district playoffs. Like, we're going to see that at Worlds. We're going to see the difference that the algae bot makes. We saw in district champs the difference that the dedicated L1 coral scorer makes in playoffs.
Yeah, that's where I think you saw that generally unleveraged opportunity take place of, we filled up the reef, but where can we get more points at? You start seeing some extra points
I think
access.
like the name of this game, like most pick and place games, is efficiency, but in this case, it's also how do we work around each other, and if there's a defender, right, how do we manage traffic, and how do we manage the resources? How do we manage accessing the resources that we have the most efficiently?
Yeah,
And that's
and
where the algae robot opens up different approaches to that.
Yeah, and I do think when you're looking at how this game's going to be played, I think if you look at the last couple or the last pick and place game, right, where you saw at events where there wasn't really depth there, like in 2023, when there wasn't really depth there, that's where you saw 2+1s. But if you look at that DCMP as an example, the 2+1s ended up getting beat by triple O's, and I think that's what's going to end up happening in this game too, as I think we're gonna look at the champs and go, oh, there's no more defense. I think there might be some weird edge cases where I think Metal Mountain, unironically, is probably the best defense spot in the world, if not one of the best defense spots in the world. So it'll be interesting to see how they're valued. But I do think that this is going to, and we saw glimpses of it with, I think, though we didn't have the algae game to set a world high score. I think we're tied for the world record in terms of coral placed in elims came out of Georgia with, I think it was match It's when they scored 244. Match 7. They
Yeah.
scored 12, 12, 14. So,
Yeah, so the total coral scored by that alliance was 51 pieces of coral, which I believe somebody on Chief Delphi had tabulated as tied for first place in the world with I think the Israel district champs match.
yeah. So like that is really, really good and fantastic. And I think again, the level of play at this event was head and shoulders of what I expected. And I will freely admit I was wrong. Like 1771 and 1833 did kind of run away with it in terms of the ranking games. I am wrong sometimes. Believe it or
That
not.
was just an absolute sheer cliff after those two robots. But it was 69, 67, and then 51 was the third place.
Well,
Yeah.
Which
I
was a
think
non-climber, interestingly enough.
I think the meta for this year, and I think this is going to be going forward in Peachtree with the strengths of the bots that we're seeing overall, is those teams that came out strong and had a static and maybe slight improvement did well all season long. But what we saw was a bunch of teams that started out strong and improved. And so the idea that if you could lock down a role and just keep it there is not going to work well for you long term in the district. You're going to need to add strong functionality, bringing on more features to the game, and not just playing the one game the whole season.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we saw, and I kind of mentioned the year like prior with 8866 coming out, and they had pay-ish DCMP, but you kind of look at them, they're like really, really good first event, 3 banners going in, but then you kind of see them getting washed over by all the teams. Similar to I think what we saw 1683 and 2023, where you or 2022, where you come out strong, you have that strong first event, and then by the end of it, you stay here, and everyone else kind of just comes over top of you.
Yeah.
So that constant need to be improving and not being satisfied with what you have, and just constantly pushing to get that extra game piece, and having that mentality is something that's going to be really, really important going forward. Because
Yeah,
if you're not
I give
doing it,
Bean a lot of credit for because they were very intently playing the ranking point game all season long, and that resulted in ranking second, ranking first. But every single step of the way, they were so focused on making sure, like, okay, if we've got that portion of that RP wrapped up, and we've got the win locked up, we're just going to go ahead and climb with 30 seconds left. That you saw them doing that more at their 2 district events. But by the time district champs got there, they're still very much playing that ranking game, but they were waiting until the 10 seconds left to go get a climb, and having any more confidence in doing that. But we're also putting up massive offensive output numbers during the rest of the match instead of saying, okay, we've got everything locked up, let's just go climb early. That they're also putting up the numbers that were going to make them look impressive on a scouting sheet as well, instead of just looking like a team's playing it safe and getting their RPs locked down and being happy with that, instead being a team putting their foot on the gas that made it an awesome race to watch who was going to seed first. Because this was another reason match 72 was a huge turning point, was like the Bean pulled that one out and walked away with a win, was like, okay, now it's up to 1771 to or us to maintain that consistency that's going to keep us at 1, but that we're any more in the driver's seat for maintaining that spot. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it was real impressive in watching Bean on the practice field and stuff. They had a fast intake, right? But what they were practicing, and this is, it's always about the details, especially in pick and place. It's not how fast you drive there. It's how fast you align to pick up and drop off. And they were hitting the human player station and driving back away. And the human player synchronization was coming in at that time. So it's always those small details that just make that just impressive.
Yeah, in the blink of an eye, that game piece was in the robot. By the time they were driving away, you're like, "There's no way they picked up our coral in that that just fraction of a second that they kissed the wall."
Right.
But that thing led them to being one of the best human-loaded robots in the district. Instead of having to get on the wall, roll the coral in slowly. Okay, we do in fact have it. Let's get out of here. That it was a really impressive showing on that front from them. That and I think keeping an eye on then the Chief Delphi build blog for Walton. Walton's then added that same roller onto their human player shoot in order to lock down that same exact kind of hit the wall and get out loading style. So hopefully that bodes well for them at working well for world champs. But
Yeah.
I guess what are some other comments on our PCH DCMP? I know we had some interesting
We got to
things
talk about
happening.
South Carolina still, guys.
Well, there's one more thing I think in his alliance selection at Peachtree DCMP. There was a bit of, shall I say, a kerfuffle, where teams 1683, their human player or their field representative accidentally misspoke and picked 8736, and then realized that they had made a mistake, and then attempted to pick 7538. And first and foremost, I would like to reach out to that student personally as a student who's been in that position before. I understand and empathize. Mistakes happen, and this is not something that we should get hung up on. You've done awesome all year. This is not something that, looking back, should hang up and be a bad memory for you first and foremost. Secondly, huge shout out to both the representatives of 7538 and 8736 for handling the situation with class and not, an understanding and what was admittedly, I think, a confusing situation for everybody. A huge shout out to all parties involved in that situation. I can understand how it can be frustrating and confusing, especially being a team that's picked, then unpicked, then picked again, and having to deal with that situation of not necessarily being wanted. With that being said, one thing I would like to give as a piece of advice, and hopefully a process thing that we as the Peachtree District can improve on, is I think having a something I've coached my students on when we were doing picking for both while I was on auto and now on 80 Ignite, is always make sure when you're going up there and to list, always give a team number and team name in one fell swoop. That way, if they don't match, that team doesn't exist. For example, if I go, hey, I would like to pick team 1833 North Gwinnett Robotics, the more enough people are going to go, hold up, that team's not real. Which team are you picking? Are you picking Bean or North Gwinnett? That way, an event like that where you're picking, especially where team numbers are very similar. A similar thing happened, I think, at IRI in 2013, where 3476 and 3467 were at the same event. It caused a confusion. Always give team name and number simultaneously. Second, I would hope in the future some sort of policy where I'm not asking that and saying that there should be an opportunity for you to give a pick, 5-second pause, take it back. But in the event that there's I would like to pick team 3318. Oh, no, sorry, 1833, that there be some grace given and understanding that it's a high stress environment, especially with these students, and allow them to, especially since it's an immediate correction, that it be gone through. Again, this is the first year and first time doing this new alliance selection format. So I do expect that there will more than likely be some guidance from first regarding this, especially going into next year. But again, huge shout out to 1683 strategy department. Unironically, I think y'all are probably some of the people who have their heads on the most straight and the light bulbs on, and have been super impressed by what you've done all year, despite my constant nagging. Y'all are in fact good enough. And again, shout outs to 8736 and 7538 for just rolling with it and
Well,
showing your
yeah,
understanding.
I was gonna say. That being said, immediately when the miss pick was made, I'm like 8736 is still a great pick in that spot for being one of the better algae robots at the event and being able to put up some coral if needed. But yeah, I figured it was a case where they were arguing between those two robots, and the representative just wound up calling out the wrong one. But yeah, as Thomas said, I hope it's just a circumstance on both the team side and the event side of looking at it as a teachable moment or a moment we can learn something from, and improve anything going forward for how our processes work.
Yeah, because one of the things that I'd like to sort of recommend in general is bring that piece of paper, give it to the MC, right? So they see it, right? Then you announce it, and they know what your pick is, and then they could like, hey, you said the wrong thing, even if you speak the wrong number. And one of the things that we have a new alliance selection process this year. That second pick, even though you have a minute and a half, if you're actually having a discussion, that time goes by fast. So you're going to have students under a lot more stress coming into those second picks than you were in the past.
Yeah, especially when it's a situation of you're one pick away and you're like, oh, I'm going to get my guy. And then all of a sudden your guy is gone and you're like, oh, I have a minute and a half to figure out who my other guy is. And I think that's the big reason why when you watch the NFL draft, which our alliance selection more closely mirrors now, is they actually have to hand in a piece of paper with names written on it. And I believe it has to be the name and the university have to match up, or like the name and the position have to match up. Just so that if there's a disconnect, the pick is, you're not accidentally picking, oh, I want Jake Smith, the punter from BYU, instead of Jake Smith, the left tackle from Oregon. There's levels of checking and verifying.
All right. So with that said, again, something to learn from. Anything else for PCH DCMP before we hop over to South Carolina? Again, I think it was an awesome show. Something we mentioned at the DE field over at Walton today was that just for talking about like 2023 being such a dramatic event for all the upsets, and just that it wasn't, nobody knew how it was going to turn out by the time the first round was done, to last year where it seemed like it was like already written in stone that the number one alliance was just going to walk away with the thing. But I think anything to be said about this year's event is that it was just an awesome show. Again, really showing off the depth of the district for the awesome alliances that were constructed. And again, putting PCH anymore on the map as a place that's producing some really quality robots. But all right, with that said, over to South Carolina.
Kakalaki. Okay. We had 28 teams descend upon Anderson, South Carolina for our first ever district championship. Because it was 28 teams, we got to play 13 matches instead of the normal 12, but we weren't cranking out quite the ranked points you guys were there in Georgia. But still, nonetheless, it was a really...
You got more matches for your money.
I got more match for our money. And I didn't realize it until I read... 13. Okay. The lucky 13. I want to first shout out to the Impact Award winners, 3489 Category 5. That is 3 years in a row winning Impact at the district championship level. If they keep this streak up, that is a streak that gets you in contention for Hall of Fame. So I want to congratulate that team on another outstanding job this year, and I hope they do well in their presentation at Worlds. The Engineering Inspiration Award this year went to 342, the Burning Magnetos. It was a pretty tight battle between them and I believe Due West. I didn't know who would win it, but again, both of those teams are very worthy, and I'm very happy for 342. As we also had a rookie all-star, although the rookie all-star did not qualify for Houston. It was 10-5-91, no cap out of a new team out of Colombia, and so they have a good upcoming season. They were able to make the playoffs in all 3 events, and I think they're going to be a quality program. I'm looking forward to that. So the event was there to, fighting for basically the five positions to Houston. So the winning alliance captain, the first pick, and the aforementioned 2 awards, and then the 5th one on points. So there was a big battle for the number 1 ranking. It went back and forth multiple times because it's such a small event. You kind of ended up in these little pods. So man, we played with 281 once. 44-51 played with 281 once, and I think we played against them 4 times. and it was that kind of matchup. 1287, the aluminum salt kind of got the short end of that stick a lot, and so they had the toughest match schedule according to Statbotics, and they were not able to rank high, but they performed well. But towards the end of the qualification matches, Viper Drive 3490 was on top. 4451 had slid to second, and then 1102 that was making magic was playing really well, and they were in the 3rd position. Well, the last match of the event was Viper Drive and 1102 versus 4451 for all the marbles going into the alliance selection process.
Match.
So that was a tight match. So 4451 with their awesome partners, our B team, Innovation Station, and 6167, the CB Bear bots, which was the basically the every bot design and just cranking through the processor like there's no tomorrow, was able to pull it out. Basically, the difference was our autonomous mode, the CB Bear bots, processing, and so it was like a 12, 15 point gap between the 2 alliances, and it was a 9 rank point match. So we were able to come out on top, and then we picked 343 Metal in Motion as our first pick, and then 231 the Midnight Circuits as our second pick, and that was their first time in playoffs this year. And we were able to run the gamut and win the event. We went up against the number 5 alliance as the finalist, which was 342, the captain, and then aforementioned 342 with 8575, the Due Westerners, and then their our 3rd pick, 8137, the Biting Bulldogs, and we kind of had to duke it out to win it all. So that being said, then 8575 was the 5th ranked robot in the division, or the next highest point rank, and they kind of just leapfrogged right over 1102 and 1287, who were in that next spot down, just because they made it to the finals. And it was really unfortunate that in the match where those 2 matched up in match 13, that 1102 ended up playing 1-on-3 towards the end of the match. They were in the lead, and then they kind of lost it. I think one robot had disconnected and one robot was beached. So it was 1102 versus the world on the other side. It was a really tight match, I think, like about 4 points or something like that. So had that been flipped, then probably 1102 would have been our 5th robot. And so my heart goes out to those guys. They really fought hard to make it. That whole event was again, I think, a qualification schedule event because of the small size of the event. However, we were able to pull off 3 9-rank point matches.
Yeah, I just checked through on that. That's pretty impressive.
And a bunch of 8s. So everybody was coral, and we were really working that magic.
It is insane to me that it came down to the last qualification match to determine who gets seed 1. Like that is the crazy. Like it reminds me of 2023 when we had I don't think that was the last qualification match, but it was one of the last ones that allowed 1771 to seed 1. Right?
Yeah, but that one's a bit different because at that point it was guaranteed that it was 1771 or Walton seeding 1 at that event, and they were picking each other.
Yeah.
So like that's a different situation.
Yeah, this is like 19 points was the difference between having a completely different Alliance 1.
Oh, it would have really shaken up the alliance selection process quite a bit. It would have been interesting. But again, we were fortunate to have the right partners to pull that out. But again, that was a super tight match.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that and looking at your the total district point counts, that it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a literal tie for 5th place.
Yes.
For going to tiebreakers for 1287, getting the thinnest of edges on 1102 for that district point race. I'd have to look at the manual to figure out what the tiebreaker is. But
I did not understand what the tiebreaker would be because 1102 was the captain, and I didn't know.
I think 1002 gets it because. Let me pull up the manual.
I think it was
1102
based off
didn't get it. It was 1287 that got the tiebreaker.
I thought it was based on your number of district points at the district champ, though. That was the tiebreaker, or was it at the first event?
I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah, I'm not sure because 1102 had more points because 1287 unfortunately had a really tough schedule.
But yeah, and I know we had a number of Peachtree teams in that spot for counting district points as things were shaken out. Like, all right, who got further in eliminations? Who's winning awards? For who's in, who's out, and it constantly shifting as the event got towards wrapping up.
At one point, 8866, for the final tally count, 8866 was 1 district point shy of the cutoff to make it to championships. But luckily, they were able to get in with some stuff.
Yeah, it'll look. I think one thing we missed out on for PCH was that 3318 wound up being the one Peachtree team that wound up declining their invite as the third bot of the winning alliance, which opened up then that spot for 8866 to be able to attend. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other interesting note is South Carolina's small enough that we got all 5 robots on one truck heading down to Houston.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Second year in a row we've done that.
Making it cheaper for all the teams.
Yeah, it does, and our guys don't have to drive that dang trailer bouncing down, through Louisiana or whatever. I've heard it's a really bad road, but it is kind of cool that we could get together and do that.
Yeah, it makes it easier too for loading. I think they have some separate considerations. I think for teams loading in that manner for having some better loading docks and such.
We get a slightly better load-in situation. Again, this year it was 342 that's driving that truck. So thank you, 342, for driving the truck for us. We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, yeah, looks like a couple. I think the concerns going into district champs weekend is okay, well, we're split up for South Carolina and Georgia. What's that really going to impact on the depth? But it's awesome to see that we wound up having a couple of awesome events on both fronts for putting up some awesome competition. Some of that drama you get to add in for how things wound up shaking out. But
yeah,
again, awesome.
Buying district, that would have been crazy. That would have been, and algae would have been really more important to make that difference.
Yep.
I wish our districts were combined again.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that will ever happen. But here's to hoping.
There's always off-season events.
Yeah.
How can you do the Peachtree district if there's a giant peach in Gaffney, South Carolina? It's not.
We've got the peachoid. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's okay, but yeah, it was a good event, well run. First headquarters, because it's our first district champ, swung in to check on us, and they gave us a fairly good report, I believe. I don't have any particular insight into that, but they were in there watching us.
How was
Awesome.
the overall like season as a small district like that? I guess.
Well, it's a little bit of a grind because it's basically the same event 3 times, right? And so it really depended on the schedule and the matchups. Who could like push through to get to the finals. It's just in all cases a mid, like a mid alliance, like a 5, 6, 7 kind of thing was in definitely trying to get into that finals every time. So it wasn't like 1 versus 2 kind of thing. Because you got a smaller group of robots, so that second pick could become stronger on the backside of that draft up at the higher alliance numbers.
Yeah, it seemed like some deeper events in worldwide wound up having a few more upsets going on. That I think, because correct me if I'm wrong, for Peachtree, I think we just had 1 seeds win all the events.
Yes.
Yeah.
1 seed, 1 win. Yeah, 1 seeds won everything.
But yeah, I think it was a case of you needed strong enough third robot or at least deep enough that those lower again 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 alliances are gonna find some real strength on their last 2 picks, and I'm putting together some strong alliances. But again, all adds up to the build up to world champs and seeing what robot. It's really hard to wrap your head around. Like, I think David, amongst the group of us here, has probably done the most pre-scouting from the notes he was reading off of before the show got started. But I'm really curious what alliance construction is going to look like at World Champs. Obviously, it's going to be a hoot for qualification matches to see kind of, all right, who do we have with us this match? How do we make the best of it?
So do we want to talk about the divisions first or the game first?
I think the divisions will be right quick. I think we can talk about the game.
Okay.
Yeah, and the game will be a little bit different based on the divisions.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of like 2017 for that matter. Like you had some divisions that had just like a whole bunch of hopper autons. Some divisions didn't have any. That they were really gear dependent and like playing defense once they got it. Of like, all right, how specialized are these divisions really?
Yeah, and I think looking at it, most divisions end up having a similar spread. I don't think there's any division that is quote unquote big boy heavy. I think a lot of them got spread out. I do think, like I said earlier, I think at this level or at the world's level, I think it's going to become a triple O optimization game, and I think defense will fall by the wayside. Just because the depth of offensive firepower will be there, that it's just try and outscore them. I do think Auton is going to end up being crazy important, just because that's an extra 2 points per game piece. If you're scoring at L4 or L3. And I think it's going to be an Auton arms race, and then who can play Algae. I think Algae is going to be most important, just because I think we're going to see a heck of a lot of reefs get filled.
Right. So it's definitely a slightly different game than we've been used to playing in our 2 districts, right? So it's going to be Auton, Algae, Deep Climb, Level 1 Coral.
I really would love to see, kind of like in 2015 with Can Wars, I would love to see the Algae that gets poached be the determinant for who wins the match. Because
I think
all
that's
season long, that's kind of been the motivation, or one of the motivations for our team was to pursue the Algae bot. So I would love to see that happen.
And I think you did kind of see that happen, because like in both in Ontario's district champs, the team ended up losing, but I think it was 74-76 in the provincial and the finals of the technology division. Team 74-76, I think they were the third bot. it was sent over to go steal algae away from 2056. And at PMW, we saw 2910 go over and start stealing algae from opponents. So I think we're already seeing it at these deeper district championship events that algae is what's winning events. And I think the biggest one is 118 and 148 got upset in their Texas district champs because I think they smashed 3005 and 6800 in terms of coral output, but got absolutely mollywopped in terms of in terms of corals or in terms of algae, so they just end up losing. Because I think it was like, yeah, algae point with 48 to 16, which is what when they got beat, the coral was 129 to 89. So I think algae is what's going to end up being the winner.
Yeah, because it's an interesting game because you can count like, all right, how many game pieces are the three robots on our alliance individually scoring, and you can't just add those three numbers up and say, oh well, our number's higher than theirs, so we're going to win every time. There's a lot of overlap in those numbers oftentimes to say, all right, well if you're all scoring L4 and L3, then yippee, you can only score those 24 times. You can't just keep scoring those. So you need to look at the traffic patterns that allow your alliance to maximize that number of what you're capable of, is trying to max it out as much as you can. But you're looking at traffic patterns. You're looking at some really interesting scouting techniques to look at, like, all right, how do we use this how could we use this robot to do what we'd want them to do rather than what they have been doing or the position that they've been forced to play kind of through quals. That is there a different way we can have them play with us that maximizes that total output, which from historic purposes was one of the reasons our 3-seed alliance in 2023 wound up making it to Einstein, was that we had three robots that didn't get in each other's way and were able to be individually successful in doing the things our robots were designed to do, instead of having three maybe potentially higher scoring robots that just didn't work as cohesively together.
Yeah, so this is definitely a point differential game at this point, right? So the two extra points in autonomous L4. I don't think at the world championship level, at least in playoffs, that'll be a huge point difference. So it'll come down to, does somebody miss a climb? Does how many can you put in L1? And then of course the bigger one is if you can steal an algae, that's an 8-point swing.
I think this is
floor to net algae bots are going to be high demand.
I wish we qualified for World.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest
that's the irony of it, right? That's the irony of it.
Yeah.
Is that bot doesn't rank, but you gotta have it.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing where looking at this World Championship, I'm really happy with how the GDC made the game, because it's not like you can just run away with the high point output action, right? It's not like you're optimizing. Oh, we're just amp shoot amp shoot. Like, because once you can only score L4 12 times. And most teams coming out of Auton will only be able to score L4 5 times maybe, or 5 or 4 times, especially at the highest level. And so once L4 is filled, it's L3 and algaes are worth the same. So and then I think it's one algae's worth 2 L1s.
That was the exact logic that we used to pursue that algae bot. It was like, once you score the L4s, L3s and algae are the exact same, right?
Yeah.
But they're using different resources, therefore it's not colliding with the others.
Yeah.
Like that. Real quick, climbers. Having that third deep climb, I feel like that's going to be what swings playoff matches, is being able to coordinate and get all 3 deep climbs.
And I don't think, if you don't have a climber at Worlds, I don't think you get picked. Like, I think that might end up being a lot of teams' DMP, where you have to have a climber, because I think the coral scoring output is going to be so high that if you can't climb, teams are just going to go, that's 12 points we don't want to leave on the table.
Well, yeah, and I think coral robots are a dime a dozen. That sure you're great at scoring coral, but what else can you do? That unless you wind up finding yourself in a captain position to be able to pick robots that complement you, you're really trying to figure out a way to eke out some defining characteristic or really setting yourself apart as the best coral scorer to have a hope of overcoming not having a climber.
Yeah. And even then, because of the law of diminishing returns, I'm assuming every single Elims or Elims alliance will be able to score 36 coral. That means you need to be able to then score 6 more L1s than everyone else to make up for that deep climb.
Yeah. So any comment I suppose I'd make here is if you have a robot that is a true lights out like coral scorer, that say if you have somebody like Walton who does not have a climber, and it sounds like they won't have one for 4 championships, is they still unlock a lot of breathing room for if depending what robot they wind up being on the alliance, is if they can take care of a majority of the reef, you open up your 2 other robots, should they be algae specialists, to spend a majority of their time during the match stealing algae and maxing out the amount of algae you're getting in the barge. So there are some interesting strategic options you get there, but it's you certainly make things a little bit tighter on what your options are by having to make up for those points you'd normally get from the climb.
I don't think no climb is a death wish to the good coral bots because of that. Because you got to look at the speed of the climbers, the reliability of the climbers. Do you have 28 of them, or 24 of them? I'm sorry, but
32 of them.
The 36-point match swing is pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, but if it takes you 15 seconds and you can get,
but can you get 6 L1 corals in 15 seconds?
5 in a park. but again, I don't think many people can in the last 20 seconds get 5 in a park. But if
you can process.
But if they enable the other people to get algae,
yeah,
you're taking the load off of them. Kellen said, I think that is still valuable.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things it's early on in the season, it was just like in 2023, you cannot miss, right? Nothing can touch the ground, right? I think at the end of the season, right, you look at oftentimes algae was just put on the ground and went on the merry way. Some teams actually played the algae, right? And I think at Worlds, if algae touches the ground, it's a loss for you. You need to pick it up and need to play it.
Immediately.
And if you can't play with it, you need to be defending that algae until your teammate picks it up.
Right. So I think that poses some of the stuff that Walton did, where they would put balls off to the side and dump things at the end. That's not going to work, right? People are going to just take that like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they're paired up with an algae bot, I mean, they just wait for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you want the algae bot to clear it such that Walton's doing coral and doesn't have to worry about putting an algae on the ground.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There will be robots that do that.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, just so teams are aware, I think this is a couple teams' first trip to Worlds. Your robot, I can guarantee you, has been watched at least 4 or 5 times or ad nauseum by any of the teams that you want to be picked by. They are already watching and analyzing you to figure out how to play with you and play against you. So there's, at least I know for a fact, almost all the big boys do a heavy amount of pre-scouting. So just
Here's
be prepared.
Here's a practical piece of advice for teams that haven't been to Worlds before they're going. Go to as many practice matches as you can, and go hit the practice field up for practice matches so that you can play with these different teams and you can figure out different ways to work around different robots.
Yeah.
And just experience playing with other teams.
We were talking about it today is like intentionally waiting at the entrance to the practice field until you see the cheesy poofs or whoever go to line up and just swoop in right behind them so you can get some time on the field with them. Just for you might not have a quals match with them, but you can at least get a match in with them on the practice field.
Yeah. And then again, the operational tempo of Worlds is a lot slower than the district events. You're only getting 10 matches spread across 2 days. So it's not like the district champs or district events where it's, all right, we just got done with our match. We have 15, 20 minutes before our next one. It's you play a match. I remember when my last Worlds as a student in 2019, like we played a match. It's like, all right, we have 3 hours to kill. What do we do? And then it's, oh, now it's lunch. And then, the event moves. You'll have a lot more time to fix the robot if it breaks. You have a lot more time. Again, hit up the practice field and be doing that. That's a lot of ways, like just meet teams. I know for a fact, and I've seen teams, I think 6919 had a team scavenger hunt that they sent their students on. Just if you're planning on making, I will not be at Worlds, so do not include me as a scavenger hunt item. It's happened in the past.
It has.
So I in fact am the only host not going to Worlds. So take that in mind. Maybe try and find the other 4 or 5. But experience it, have fun. Another really, really big thing is the workshops that end up getting hosted. I don't know if Karthik is doing his.
He is.
He is.
5 o'clock.
Go
on
to
Wednesday.
that one. Go to that one.
Get there early because
Get there
early because it fills. Like if there's one talk that you need to go to, it is that one. Go to.
It is recorded, but it is a hoot if you get to it in person.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And Karthik is cool, and if you want to talk to him, he will take time to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So
I will double down on all these messages. Biggest opportunity is talk. Don't stop talking to teams. You're going to learn a lot of stuff from these teams.
So I'm excited to go with the buzz.
Talk to teams. You're standing at the practice line. Talk to teams. It's a great opportunity to meet.
I'm excited to go with the buzz bots because I made it to the champs for the first time in 2005 for my team's rookie season for 1625 up in Illinois. We won the rookie all-star and qualified for Worlds. We also won our regional, but we were also rookie all-stars. But we got to Worlds and got our butts kicked. Just getting there and getting our butts kicked was such an inspirational part of the process of like, okay, now we need to know what we need to do next year in order to play at this level and come ready for it instead of trying to make it back here just to get our butts kicked again. To our credit, we learned pretty well for being 2 matches away from getting to Einstein our sophomore year. So that was really cool, but there were also a lot fewer teams in the world for having any better chance of getting that far all the way back in 2006. But I'm excited because 5 of my 7 immediate family members for my parents and then 2 of my brothers will be in Houston. We'll be missing 2 of my other family members, but excited to have any bit of a first family reunion down there. So 1625, my parents' team will be competing. I don't know if they actually got a division assigned yet. They were one of the very last teams out of the regional points pool to make it in. Let's see if I don't see them listed yet, but yeah, excited to hang out with some family. Obviously, all the first friends out there. Again, as mentioned, go and talk to other teams. Something I think competitively I'm looking forward to is the amount of trust that Alliance captains and top picks are going to be putting into their third bots of saying, all right, we trust you to fill up most of the reef so we can go and do the more difficult things for either stealing algae or what have you, or that you're going to be trusted as the third bot if you're an algae specialist.
I think
go and nab some algae from the other side. But I think it's a really cool opportunity for, again, alliance construction and figuring out how you're gonna to make the most of it. But the third robot's just gonna play such a crucial role in making or breaking an alliance.
I think that's where, like, on Friday morning, you have to look at the rankings, look at realistically where you can seed and things like that, and start maybe adjusting strategy to be more of a role player in those qualification matches. So, not necessarily like show for the sake of showing, but play a versatile role player, because that is going to be coveted in playoffs, and that's kind of where the game is going, is in more enhanced roles and division of roles.
And also, don't break down. Don't break down. Don't break down.
This is some interesting commentary I think I've had since 2023 on just the how scouting numbers work. If you can't just look at your scouting numbers and say, well, this is how they performed over their 10 matches. So this is all the data we're going to recognize, and we're just going to take it at face value and say, okay, this team averaged this many coral over their 10 championship qualification matches.
This is if you've never been, this is next level scouting.
Yeah.
Last year I was in an alliance, and I'm talking to the alliance captain, and I says, hey, we've got, this, and they said, yeah, we know. Because I thought they would have never noticed, this little thing we did, and they said, oh yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
But so you need to be scouting and recognizing robots for their abilities when they're playing the role they were designed and best suited to fill, rather than, okay, well, and this is our 2023 instance of, we had a quals match where we had 3 robots that could only intake from the single human player station. So of course all 3 robots are going to have worse output for that match, because they're sharing a single loading station. That you can't weigh that value against picking up one of those 3 robots for your alliance and saying, well, clearly, if you're the only robot using that station, you're going to do a lot better than you did during that match, or for that purpose, for the majority of your qualification matches where you've been forced to share that thing. Whereas instead, we've intentionally picked you because our alliance is constructed such that we have 2 wall loaders and 1 single substation loader, that we're optimizing everybody for what they were designed to be and what they're best suited to be, rather than simply reducing them to an average number of game pieces they scored in their 10 qual matches at Worlds.
That approach to scouting works at the district level and can work at the district championship level for the most part, but that's the difference between that and World Championship alliance selection. Is you have to be deliberate about how you construct your alliance. For what it's worth, in 2023, when we made Einstein, the pick that got us there was 5804, our 4th robot. We would not have made that pick based off of data alone, because their data was like 8080, things like that. But we dove in and we watched video, and what was the crucial factor was, 1, their autonomous modes that they had, and number 2, through that match video, we were able to see how effective they were at driving and how effective they were about traffic and going around others, and that was what pushed them as, like, honestly, we wanted them as our, like, 3rd robot.
Right.
So yeah.
This year will be interesting because there are different. I think there's more different robot mixes. And then what do you as a robot want to show? What are you comfortable with, and are you performing that role? And so in your qualification matches, you don't be pushy about it, but you want to talk about with your alliance partners what you're trying to do. And every time, as weird as this sounds, every time you're trying to play a match, you might not be trying, I just want to win a match. No, you want to show what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And so, is it this autonomous you want to show? Is it this algae skill? that you want to show, right? So you need to make sure that in your matches you're showing the skills that people are scouting for, and that you are comfortable in that role. And
Yeah,
rely
you're at the same time auditioning for two things, or like serving two purposes. Number one, you're trying to win the match and check those boxes if you're trying to rank high. But as David was saying, you're also auditioning for showing off specific skill sets. So the teams that are out there scouting and are going to be then the captains on your field, making sure they know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And if it's things you don't get to show off during quals matches, of making sure you have video of those things you are capable of, and go to Alliance captain saying, hey, we didn't get to show this off, but we are capable of this, and we want you to know.
Yeah.
That's why it's important
And,
to do practice matches.
Yeah, because that's where things can get seen. Film your practice matches. This isn't like district champs and other events that you've been to where teams will miss things. I remember 2019, again, my last year at Worlds. We were in the same division as 1678, and there was a match where our robot DC'd, and I think I was talking to Kellen as a student. I was like, "Oh, that's fine. It's just one match. They probably won't notice or care."
They
And
won't
Kellen,
know.
and then Kellen responds with, "No, they noticed, and we just got unpicked." And it's
Yeah.
like that's
Well,
the
so
level.
same thing happened in 2023. We were at a match with 195, who was one of the other top bots on the division, and we disconnected in the match just because I think the barrel plug came out of the switch or the radio, or I forget which one it was. But like immediately after the match, I went in to explain to them, like, hey, this is exactly what went wrong. We want you to know it's fixed. They're like, just don't let it happen again. But I just wanted to make sure that a contender for a captain on the field knew that it was a stupid mistake and that it wasn't going to happen again.
Yeah. Like, and again, mistakes happen, things happen, but like this is I think it was another mentor in 1746, but at 2019 Worlds said, I think Trent was the big boy teams are the big boy teams for a reason, and they make it as far as they do consistently because they control every single variable that they can't control. Like in 2017, 971 gave us a new climb rope, or asked us to change our climbing rope for a quals match because ours looked a little bit more frayed than they were comfortable with. Like, because they didn't want it to snap and risk losing the match and losing them RPs. Like, that's. And then again, 2019, there was a cart that 1678 wheeled around pits to make sure that even if, that you could drive up on their forks regardless if you were in a match or not. Like, it is a very fun event. It is, have a blast.
What we haven't discussed yet is that they've changed the game on us. We've now got 2 of the 3 RP are now changed in that you have to score for the Coral RP that you need to score 7 per level instead of 5. And then the Barge RP changed such that I believe you need 16.
Yeah.
Barge
So
points
it's a
instead of 14?
shallow and a deep, or 2 deep.
Or a deep in
Or
2
in
parts.
2 parts.
A deep in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those L1 robots are now very valuable, but there are less of them. Well,
yeah.
Buzz bot.
And I think
Not necessarily the L1 robots, dedicated L1, like playing that role of dedicated L1 scorer is a lot more valuable now.
And then on top of that, I think having I would have liked it if they hadn't changed. I think the 2 that they changed, I'm okay with changing the Coral RP one. But I think a better change would have been for them to change the Auton RP to be everyone to just adding you need to score more than 1 game piece in Auton. I think that would have been a better change. Because what if you're in a match and you're the only climber and one team doesn't show up and now you're locked out of an RP now.
Yeah.
So I would have preferred it to have changed.
One of the things I saw in Chief Delphi that I thought would be a good change, instead of saying game pieces, just how many points you have to score in Auton, so that they could bump that up a little bit more and sort of give flexibility how you get there. Because right now, I think you're going to see a lot of the Auton RPs just sort of become automatic for the most part.
Yeah.
And adding a second team or adding a different way, sort of teasing that out a little bit more would have been nice.
Yeah. Because I think that would have been the change I would have done. Because I think now it's become that Climb RP is alliance dependent, which it still was to begin with, but I would have liked the Auton RP to be the one that got changed. So
it does change the game up. I think the Coral RP is interesting. I think the depth of the divisions it's not gonna be as interesting as it seems. That I think you could have gone a little higher than 7 and still been pretty safe in just the amount of Coral teams are going to put up. But I think we're also going to see some skyrocketing cooperation rates. Oftentimes because it's the first tiebreaker on for ranking, but it's also going to make it so you only need to score 21 Coral for your alliance instead of 28.
Do you think we'll see cooperation games a la 2012?
Yes.
I think there's very clear incentives to not co-op in a lot of situations, and there's clear incentive to co-op in a lot of situations.
Yep.
It seems like it's happened a few times where a team has self-co-opted and just gone over to the other side of the field and done it, which generally doesn't make too much sense in the whole spirit of cooperation. That seems like a slightly broken game mechanic that a single or one alliance can take care of cooperation by themselves.
But it takes 7 game pieces out of the tray with the extra 2 moves. So that's probably a pretty good deal.
Yeah, the value of that's gone up substantially compared to. All right. Yeah, we have to score. If we score these 4 game pieces, then we don't have to score 5 game pieces. Okay, you saved a lot of effort there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said,
and you get the
tiebreaker.
But you get the tiebreaker, right?
That tiebreaker is.
I mean, there was very little co-op going on at DCMP, and I'm looking at it and like, come on, just get one. I don't care if it's 0.005. We just need the 0.005, right?
Was the tiebreaker for us seeding 12 over 2 other teams that had the same ranking score. So it did make a difference, but not like top.
Yeah.
We'll see. Y'all want to go down through divisions at all?
Yeah, so here's just a quick hit list. If we've missed your team, we're sorry. We're not perfect. Shout out to Hayden in the Peachtree Discord. We stole your list. Why lie?
Yeah, alphabetically.
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah, his list. And we'll just start in alphabetical order with the Archimedes division with 3489, 6340. Notable powerhouses in that division include 604, Quicksilver, 1114, Simbots, 1197, I don't know their actual name, and 2481, the Robo Tears. The Curie division has 1261 and 1771. Other notable powerhouses 27, 67, 359, 2046, 3005, 6329, and 7457. And I, quite frankly, 1771 is one of the favorites to win that division. From what we've seen from what I've heard at DE, about what's going on and how they're even improving upon their DCMP performance. Those guys, I hope they've been knocking on the door for 3 straight years. I hope this is the year they finally get it done. The daily division has 1833, 4451, and 8575. Notable powerhouses include 179 Swamp Thing, 900 the Zebracorns, 1678 Citrix 36, 1796 Chill Out, and 2056 OP Robotics. This division is going to be interesting because it's a race to see, does 1678 and 2056, do they get to play together? And if not, what the heck happens?
Seeds number 1, that's what happens. Yeah, my
1796 is the Robo Tigers for
Yeah.
scout correction.
Robo
Yeah,
Tigers,
chill out,
not chill out.
1778.
Yeah,
Oh,
Robo
oops.
Tigers. So the Robo
Robo
Tigers,
Tigers.
and Stipulse 694 won an event together.
Yeah, 694 should be on that list. They're missing.
694 should be way up on that list. They're really
Dang it, Hayden from
Well-
Peachtree Discord.
Hey,
we're helping them out here.
yeah, hey, but
Stipulse is really good.
it's either going to be
Mhm.
1678 and 2056 or 1833 seeds one and disrupts things. That's my prediction.
And I would like to raise a question. If you're 1833, do you pick the better OPR? And in my opinion, watching both heavily, because I've been helping pre-scout a bit for Bean, is do you pick better Robot 2056 and pick against the plot armor that is the 1678 Einstein streak? Or do you just say, you know what, if we're the team that breaks the Einstein streak, let's go down with the ship, and pick 1678? I think that ends up being a very interesting question.
I picked 1678.
I picked
Because
2056.
I sat next to Michael Corsetto at the first mentor conference, and we're like best buds now, right?
I don't know. I still have a bone to pick with him over 2019, but I digress.
Are you trying to get Bean unpicked now?
No.
Yeah, I'm pleased with this.
If Michael Corsetto is listening to this podcast in preparation for Worlds, I'm
That'd be
sorry,
great.
Mike. You're wasting your time.
This is good, valuable opposition research.
Exactly.
Like,
Little does he know, we've been paid for our opinions.
No bribes. I am Thomas, integrity, last name redacted for a reason. I refuse. Please, someone put that on a t-shirt. Looking at you, Howard. Galileo, we have Team 1002's there. To represent Peachtree, and notable powerhouses include 180, Spam, 971, and 4946. Hopper has no PCH teams, so we're going to skip it. If you would like to watch, notables are, they have Killer Bees, 195 are there. But other than that, not interesting. The Johnson division has a whole bunch of Peachtree teams and South Carolina teams with 3342, 1648, 6919, 8866, and 10482. Notable powerhouses include 111 Wild Stang, 1690 Orbit, 4414 High Tide, and 6800 Valor. Milstein has 1683. Notables include 118, 254, and 5940 Bread, which is my second favorite team name. The Newton division has 343, 2974, and 7538. And this is a long list, but they have 125 the Neutrons, 148 the Robolangers, 4282, I don't know their name, 1323 Maton, 2910 Jack in the Bot, 3847. I think that's Prepatech Lambot, and 6328 Mechanical Advantage. That division is going to be fun.
Did you say
that certified fund? I did say fun.
Okay.
The Madtown, but that is my certified fund division because I think that there are enough teams there that the one that division is going to be the crazy division. I'm calling it now.
Well, they've got an obvious top pairing, right? But in my case, I'm picking 343 to make a deep run because they now have floor to net algae capability, which is, again, like I said earlier, going to be highly valued.
Highly
they're going to be picked up.
Also,
this is my comment: is you're generally not looking at the best team in PCH doesn't necessarily have the best odds of getting to Einstein. It's a matter of where you're generally going to be picked at. Like if you're a robot that's going to be a third bot, but you have the right skill set to best suit your alliance partners, that there's any chance that that's going to put you in a better spot to get to Einstein than if the best robot from your district winds up seeding number 7 and picking their own alliance, but generally losing out in a few matches.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting race to see, like, all right, what
Are you-
robots from our districts are really going to have the best chances of getting to
Like,
Einstein?
Are you good enough to be the top pick, or are you not? Are you not good enough to make it down and back? So you're the third bot for the top pick. I think you saw that like in 2017, where it's the best robot in the district that year was 1746, with the only one that could shoot, end up flaming out in 2 matches in quarters. Whereas 2415, I think they made it as a first pick on a late seed in a weaker division, and 4910 and 4910, 4112, and 4188 each made it as third and fourth bots, which ends up, because they were able again to make it down and back. So it becomes an interesting mix. Again, I think if something on my closing comments, something I told my kids, priority 1 is to have fun. So make sure you have fun at the event.
Right.
Priority number 2, and priority number 2 and 3 is, team dependent. So consider them both priority number 2, which is, I say priority number 2 is learn, but some teams say priority number 2 is win, which is okay. If so, those are 2 and 3, but everyone knows priority number 4 is be safe. So make sure you have you have fun first, you win and you learn, and then make sure you're safe while doing it.
Hey, no. Safety first, everything else second. Famous words from my former mentor, Royale George.
Or William Osmond, safety third.
Yeah, that wouldn't fly in my company, but no, it's a fun time for all. Just talk.
There's a reason Thomas isn't OSHA certified yet.
I am forklift certified, though. Just keep that in mind.
Just stay away from them.
That sounds dangerous. I don't know why. That just sounds dangerous.
It was.
Anything else I'd suggest too is as Saturday rolls around, for keeping an eye on what PCH and South Carolina teams are making eliminations on their fields, is make the rounds, cheer them on, figure out who's still in the race, and keep cheering for them, because it's really cool to see when our local teams kind of again make those runs and show the world what we get.
Yeah. It's very common of, oh, we're out, let's go to this next division over. We're 6. I think in 2023 the entire Peachtree district was pretty much on the Newton field.
Yeah,
because both 1746 and IHOT were like, their fields were right beside each other, and both of them were in division finals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, David over here was kind enough to flag me down. And I was like, "Hey, David, how's it going?" He's like, "Kellen, look at the field. The cube fell off your robot." I'm like, "Oh,
yeah." I'm like, yeah.
You might want to check that out."
Yeah.
It's
support those. It's really fun.
It's awesome how we all get together as a community, because when we were doing that Einstein run, like Walton came over to help us.
Yeah, Justin and Chris from Walton, and then I think it was Ryan from 1771.
Yeah,
fixed our electrical issues so we could continue to.
Yeah,
keep breaking our robot.
Yeah.
My favorite moment from that run, Kellen and I look under the robot. It's really dark there, first of all, like with all the lights down. Kellen and I look under the robot and we're like, that panel should not be 2 inches.
2 inches, yeah. Your belly pan.
It's sticking down 2 inches under the rail.
Yeah, we had a polycarbonate panel riveted to the bottom of our drive rails, but we had a 1/4-inch steel panel. I don't know if it was just zip tied down to that polycarb panel, but obviously enough weight on that panel and the amount of hits we were taking that year just sheared enough of those rivets that this panel was then drooping. That I'm sure if we were to drive the wrong direction, it would dig into the carpet. But yeah, just being down there between matches, just looking around for what might be, how the robot's looking, what we can be working on. I stick my head down there. I'm like,
yeah.
So luckily we got a couple bolts tossed in there before our next match for getting it off the floor.
That was the crazy. I think that thing was so close to just falling out from underneath the robot. I don't know
And
how.
we were very intentionally playing like the high tide role of just throwing our weight
Hitting
into whoever we could.
That was the
And-
first that year.
Until we played High Tide, in which case we did not want to hit them. They had a kill list longer than ours.
Yeah.
Well, I think, does that wrap us up?
That
Possibly.
does. I think. And
Yeah.
producer Ian, before we wrap up, is this the longest episode of the year? Oh, an hour and a half.
Oh, sorry, guys.
we'll have to put some bookmarks in. We'll see if we can help you out.
Mhm.
At least we stopped hitting the 2-hour ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at us.
That's what I'm trying to.
With
I knew
that,
we could do it.
Last call.
if we end up doing a Worlds recap, we'll see you then. If not, it's been a heck of a ride. We will see you next season.
If you're at Worlds,
Yeah.
say hi. I'm going to be in Daly and Johnson. And Kellen's also going to be in Daly and Johnson. And David's going to be in Daly.
And I'll be all over the place.
And I'll be in my living room.
So
Oh,
if you find one of them, they can reach me. So
Don't find me in my living room. I will call the police.
wait till about 3 a.m. and just start rattling the door.
Well, no, if you do that, the police aren't getting called. It's an ambulance.
All right, before things get any further off the rails, good luck out there, PCH. If you're staying at home watching the action, do what you can to call out your favorite teams and show your support. But we'll see anybody who's in Houston. If not, we'll see you when we get back, and hopefully we have some good showings by our PCH and South Carolina teams. But we'll see how it goes. Looking forward to an exciting championship event. Until then, we'll see you all next time.
Mhm.